The Christmas tree is gone.
The Christmas tree is gone.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome to the podcast and live stream. Here we are. Life and recovery and a little bit more. I'm not good at watering plants because plants they seem like I want to give them more water than they need. And that's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do you go about watering plants?
Okay. So my friend with a baby.
How do you go about determining that a plant needs to be watered?
It's not a pleasant thing. And I think there's a better way. But my friend with babies and diapers, she would check their diaper by sticking her fingers down. I'm like, that's not a good way of checking diapers because now you have poo on your hand.
But not every plant you have to know what kind of plant it is. Is it a plant that wants to be?
But that's what your directions for me is: stick your finger down the soil.
Well, I said for sure don't water them if they don't feel dry.
If they don't feel dry. So if they're bone dry.
If they're bone dry, then okay, give them a little bit of water.
But my mistake is I'm looking on the surface.
Yeah.
And the surface is bone dry, but then underneath it's not.
I know.
So I get tricked. I get duped because I don't want to stick my finger.
You gotta stick your finger
sticking their fingers down the soil? And diapers.
Everybody who waters plants. You can't just decide you're going to water the plants today because you haven't done it in a while and go around and pour a whole bunch of water in each plant.
That's what I do.
They don't all need the same amount of water. Like some of them want to be dry. And I'm not a professional by any means.
Succulents are the worst because you don't have to water them, but I feel sorry for them. And then I drown them like with 4 drops of water. Like, how can a succulent die like that? They're weak. Except they're so strong because they live like without water.
Well, but I do have a friend who's very good with plants and said she can't keep succulents alive.
Why?
At all. They don't live in her apartment.
Oh, because it's too humid?
They just don't like the air in her apartment. And I think that's why the one in the bathroom's dying too, because it doesn't get any sunlight.
Doesn't get no sunlight. They need some sunlight.
Yeah.
Succulents are weird because they don't need water, but they're so weak because
and they're so pretty when you get
Where do they live? Are they fake plants? Like, do they live outside? They couldn't because it rains. Or do they
not
grow
here.
up in
we
the
don't
desert?
Have succulents here.
Are they desert plants?
I think so.
But then when it rains,
dry climate plants.
Toasted.
So we've brought them here and tried to make them adjust.
Canadian.
All right. Today we are going to read, or no, you're going to read today.
We are on the 23rd of
23rd.
January. Man, we're blowing right through January. It's been so good. I love January so far. It's really good. Yeah.
I'm happy.
An alcoholic is a person whose drinking has got him into a blind alley and beaten. It doesn't say that. He hasn't been able to learn anything from his drinking experience. He is always making the same mistakes and suffering the same consequences over and over and over again and over. He refuses to admit he's an alcoholic. He still thinks he can handle the stuff. He won't swallow his pride and admit that he's different from ordinary drinkers. He won't face the fact that he must spend the rest of his life without liquor. He can't visualize life without ever taking a drink. Am I out of this blind alley? Are you out of this blind alley? Meditation for today. I believe that God has all power. It is his to give and his to withhold, but he will not withhold it from the person who dwells near him, because then it passes indispensably from God to that person. It is breathed into the person who lives in God's presence. I will learn to live in God's presence, and then I will have these things which I desire of him: strength, power, and joy. God's power is available to all who need it and are willing to accept it.
I thought it was interesting because this last sentence is about available to all who need it and willing to accept it. And yet up here it says that God's power passes insensibly from God to that person.
Oh, insensibly? What?
And I felt like insensibly means like without thinking, like I don't have to think about it. It just happens. And so I guess I'm willing to accept it because I am spending time with God.
Mm-hmm. So it's cause and effect.
His power will pass without me really even thinking about it.
So then I get his power by being close to him.
Mhm.
And so what we do in LifeLab is we understand how we are far from him. Even though we have belief, we don't have his power because we can't get close to him because we have these blocks in the way. We've set up roadblocks, fear, resentment, all of those things that we can't remove. Just like we can't remove our alcoholism or drug addiction or codependency, whatever it is. And so we actually have to come into agreement with God. So we actually label these things, we find them, we have a way of looking into the mirror through a process of inventory and really get to see them. But I think people have a problem with admitting that I'm alcoholic, and I think that it can be very simply defined as my body reacts differently, just like I'm not diabetic, but like a diabetic, their body reacts differently because they have a pancreatic, that's a hard issue. It doesn't react normally like the rest of us. And so what it means to be alcoholic is my body, when I consume alcohol, it produces a craving for more. And so then when I want to stop it, I can only stop for a week or a month or 6 months or even a year or 2 years, and then I pick it up again. And that's the mental and physical part that I have no power over. The control, I have no control over. What seems like control actually is an illusion. And the older I get, the more control I lose, and the harder and harder it is. So it's progressive as well as fatal. And so that's what it means. It doesn't, so I have to come under the concession that this is what's happening inside of me. And then in step 2 is coming into belief in God and want that relationship to solve all of my problems. And then God will give us experiences to lead us into that. So that's what I get out of that.
I had someone ask me the other day if I really felt like joy is possible. And they were just saying, like, there's actually not a lot of people around me that have joy.
I got the joy.
And I felt really sad. It's true. And I mean, maybe part of it is we don't actually get, depending on where we spend our time, I don't actually get a lot of opportunity to rub up against people who are in joyful moments or experiencing joy unless I put myself in those situations, right? And so as I draw closer to people and invite people into my world, and become trusted, then I can see, like, I get to be with them through sorrow and joy.
Full of joy, joyful. Yeah, the blind alley is hard. I think there's a lot of people living in the blind alley, still trying to figure it out and implement control and behaviors and therapists and medication, and none of that's wrong. But if that's where I'm trying to solve the problem, then it's going to be futile. And so those are blind, dark alleys, and we're being driven by the slave driver of fear. And it's hard. It's a hard life, but there is hope. If you want to find out more about that, just private message us and we'll get back to you. That's all I got. That's all you got. That's all you got. That's all I got. All right.
Monday morning.
Have a great Monday morning. Let's crush it.
Are you going to read the prayer?
We got the prayer. I pray that I may get myself out of the way so that God's power may flow in. I pray that I may surrender myself to that power. And I just want to assure you that there is a plan of action to do that. We can't just sit and hope for the best. And so if you want to know more about that, give us a DM or a PM. DM.
DM.
All right. Keep the peace, be of good behavior. We'll see you tomorrow.